Welcome to the long game. My name is Howard Hale. I've got special guests with me today, Brian Heathman from Made for Success Publishing.
Well, Howard, thanks for having me on the show.
Great to have you here. What are you going to talk about today?
Well, it's interesting. We're going to be talking a little bit about the difference between 10x thinking and 3x thinking in terms of rapidly growing the revenues for your business. So it should be an interesting conversation.
Awesome. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back with Brian Heathman. And Brian and I have known each other for years, and I know what he's all about. But maybe our viewers don't know as much about you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian.
Absolutely. So, I've been a Seattle native for many years, have moved all over the country from Alaska to New York. And about 15 years ago, I started a publishing company called Made for Success Publishing. And I've been publishing books for famous speakers, people who make a living as like a motivational speaker, and a number of CEOs, business experts, and athletes, telling their stories in an interesting way. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about growth strategies, and I can speak to it through a lens of the whole Made for Success publishing story.
Awesome. There's a lot of talk these days about 10xing and growth and all kinds of different strategies. And I'd love to hear your slant on how you play the long game and how what your thoughts are about 10xing.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a very interesting philosophy standpoint when you stop and think about it, Howie, because when you adopt a 10x mindset for growing a business, there's things that you're going to do as a business person that are somewhat illogical in terms of running a business. And I want to talk about that a little bit. But let's talk about what business looks like as a 1x thinker. I think that's kind of an interesting place to start. So if you
Okay,
are...
so that's totally contrary to what everybody else is talking about, right?
Oh, it totally is. It totally doesn't make sense, right? Because we all hear from the gurus, Gary Vee and whatnot, that you want to grow your
Grant
business
Cardone.
10x, Grant Cardone, the whole thing. And growing 10x is something that would be admirable. I'm sure you would like to grow your business by 10x.
Well, who wouldn't, right?
Who wouldn't want to grow their business by 10x? So when you take the contrary view and think about a 3x business growth strategy, I mean, that's something that's a little controversial. And I bet you a lot of people that are watching this video right now are going to disagree with a couple of the things that we talk about, Howie.
Okay, so why is the 10x considered a possibility of a 95% failure rate?
Right. Well, let's take a look at it. Let's just take a look at it by the numbers. If you take a look at venture capitalists in the year 2017, approximately 78% of the money pumped into venture firms has been written off by the venture capital community, which means that the $85 billion that was spent funding startups, 78% is waste. So the people that are playing the venture capital game are truly people who are going after this, not only a 10x growth strategy, but perhaps even a 100x growth strategy. But statistically, as we know it, you've got a 78% chance of failure if you adopt that business philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of us who have got a lot to lose, where failure is not an option, we've taken our life savings, we've doubled down, we've bet the farm on the things that we're doing. We don't have the luxury of being able to play in a game where there's a 78% chance that we're going to lose. So Howard, I mean, talking about the long game and playing the long game in business is one that I think is critically important in today's age, where all the thought leaders that we're listening to are encouraging us to go for the 10x growth strategy.
Right. Well, so in what situation do you think a 10x makes sense?
Well, let's say that you are an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and you're running a technology startup, and you've got to get to market fast. And maybe you're young, and maybe you don't have the capital to put into your own business. well, then it makes sense for you to talk to angel investors or private equity firms or venture capitalists to get the funding that you need to start your business. If you take that money, then you're automatically, by definition, in the 10x mode. Certainly, if you're a publicly traded company, you're probably not quite thinking 10x because you've got a little bit of establishment on where you are. Um, but definitely, if you're a kind of a young technology company, you definitely want to be thinking about the 10x. That's where it makes sense.
I was thinking about software as services model before we even had this conversation, and I was thinking, in the startup phase of getting money and figuring out how to spend it, you might want to focus on 10x. But when you're actually developing the software, you're going to develop it as fast as you can. But mistakes are made if you go too fast. And I'm sure that analogy also holds true for other types of businesses. So tell me more about 3x and how you feel 3x is a more logical way to go.
Sure. Well, when you read books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the philosophies that Stephen Covey talked about is some of the thinking in the way that we structure our days, in the ways that we prioritize our time. And for many of us in business, we've been successful at doing certain tasks in business by what I call 1x thinking before we go on to the 3x philosophy. So what does it look like to be a 1x business thinker?
That seems like being an underachiever right there, right? It's got a...
Absolutely.
For me, it's got a negative connotation. Like, why not shoot for the stars, right?
Absolutely.
And get halfway there.
Yeah, right, exactly. So why set your mindset on achieving exactly what you achieved last year?
Right.
But a lot of us get caught in the cycle. So as you take a look at work that comes in, oftentimes we'll be spending time on the things that are important in the short term, meaning they're urgent and they're things that have to get done, but they don't have strategic importance for the long-term growth of your business. So the 1x thinker will be responding to email, responding to voicemails, responding to employees coming, requesting things, but not spending the predominant amount of their time as a leader on the things that are going to grow the business. So they take their eye off the vision,
right,
and they keep focused on their mission.
So they're just tasks, daily tasks that they need to do versus actual growth.
Right, exactly. And it's an easy trap to fall into, believe me. So I find myself falling into the trap of 1x thinking and 1x behavior just naturally, just based on the cacophony of things that are coming across my plate as a business owner. Now, I've been running my business for about 15 years, and I am always trying to take that step back and get out of the weeds, so to speak, so I can, out of the trees, so I can see the forest.
Right.
That type of analogy.
More of a 100,000-foot view.
Exactly. And it's at those times where I take the step back is where I usually get my best growth.